So, we're going to be talking about the process of learning in this session, and this will include various types of learning styles, how various parts of the brain contribute to learning, and how environmental factors can influence our ability to learn. So, before we get started, we have a fun icebreaker for you. So, what type of learner are you? And you can put this in the chat.
So a lot of people put visual learners, and then there's also people who are unsure, and then there's some auditory learners as well. And then yeah, Sarah says that we'll go over these soon, so it's okay to be confused.
Yeah, so we're going to just dive deeper into each learning style. And the 4 types of learning styles we're going to focus on today include visual, auditory, read and write, and kinesthetic learning.
All right, so first up is visual learners, and I fall into this category. To describe it in one word, you learn by seeing, because visual learning means a student learns best using visual tools. So if you're not really sure what type of learner you are, and you think you might be a visual learner, here are some characteristics to check. Visual learners are usually able to visualize words in their mind. They're good at following written instructions and digesting manuals. They like to read a lot, and they show intense focus while they're reading. They're typically very well organized and meticulous. They like to plan ahead, and they take excellent notes. They have great handwriting and spelling. They also exhibit very strong attention to detail, especially for visuals like images, charts, diagrams, etc. They're very color oriented. They're also generally quite creative and or artistically minded. They also have wandering thoughts during lectures. So when a person is speaking, they like to look at their lips or their hands or presentation or some text to keep themselves grounded. So if that sounds like you, here are some tips to help you learn as a visual learner. So first, you should use mind maps or any kind of visual aids like maps, charts, diagrams, and lists. You should also take notes and then use colored highlighters to color code because, again, artistically minded and color oriented. Also use clue words for recalling. And just make use of active recall and use visual chains and mnemonics. Also use study cards and flashcards, and make use of audio visuals like YouTube videos with narration, images, and or captions. And then finally, we have some techniques that teachers use or that they keep in mind when they have visual learners in their class. So they'll usually have visual aids and color and presentations and assignments like we do here. We have emojis and everything is nice and blue themed. They also allow for reflection time after lessons so that visual learners can visualize their work. They also give them time for reading in class and give them written instructions for feedback. We'll be now moving on to auditory learning.
One word to sum up auditory learners is listening. Auditory learners means that a student learns most effectively by listening. Some characteristics of an auditory learner are that they excel in speaking exams or public speaking. They have enhanced communication skills. They have strong listening skills. They have good memory for spoken information, and they're fluent or persuasive in speaking. If you're an auditory learner, some great ways to learn include reading aloud, discussion, Q&As, or podcasts. And one way to teach, or many ways to teach auditory learners include repetition, group paired projects, discussions, or self-paced learning. Now on to read and write.
Okay, so reading and writing learners are like people who read by learning and writing, which is kind of implied by the name. People who use this technique are good at like reading notes, handouts, and textbooks, and they like to use dictionaries and reference materials. They can also benefit from rewriting and rereading notes. And then they can use like lists, headings, and glossaries, and also like definitions to understand the concepts that they're supposed to learn. And they typically do better in multiple choice and essay tests, and they learn best by organizing items into lists. So that's like writing a 1, 2, 3 list, or like ABCD. So if you are a read write learner, repetition is really helpful. So you should read words over and over, and also like uh, write them out and read your notes repetitively, like in your head. And then you can also rewrite ideas and principles into other words to help you understand it better. And if you have like diagrams or graphs, you should kind of try to describe them. So talk about the trends, whether it's growing positively, negatively. And then you can also turn reactions, actions, diagrams, charts, and flows into work. And you can imagine your lists arranged as multiple choice questions, and then study using that. And then you can also practice with MCQs, and you can write paragraphs with like beginnings and endings. And then this is also mentioned earlier, but in your notes, you can write lists using the ABC or 1, 2, 3 heading.
One word to describe kinesthetic learning is movement. So kinesthetic learning means that the student learns most efficiently by doing physical activities. So it uses a combination of visual and auditory techniques. Some characteristics of a kinesthetic learner are someone who likes to move around a lot while studying, likes to engage in class activities, is physically active in the learning environment, excels in lab settings where they can manipulate materials to learn, has excellent hand-eye coordination, easily remembers how to do tasks the second time around, is very enthusiastic, and enjoys playing educational games. As a kinesthetic learner, it's best to make visuals like posters, build models, use index cards, fidget while studying, and turn study materials into a game. And to teach a kinesthetic learner, it's best to give them outdoor time, divide long lessons into shorter sections, change the teaching location frequently, and provide more hands-on learning activities.
So now we're going to focus on how certain parts of the brain contribute to learning.
So first we have neurons, which are a specialized cell known as a nerve cell, and they're the basic units of the nervous system. The structure of a neuron consists of the dendrite, soma, nucleus, axon, node of Renbier, myelin sheath, Schwann cell, and axon terminal. The three main parts of the structure are the dendrites, axon, and soma. The dendrites receive communications from other cells, while the axon carries away nerve impulses. The soma is the cell body and is home to the nucleus. The rest of the parts of the neuron are still critical parts in a neuron's function. The myelin sheath is an insulating layer. The node of a Renbier is a gap, and a Schwann cell is a main glial cell of the nervous system. And the axon terminal releases neurotransmitters that relay signals. The function of a neuron is essentially sending and receiving signals from your brain that allow information to be carried throughout the human body. And in this way, neurons are a huge part of the process of learning. Next, we'll talk about neurotransmitters.
Hello. So neurotransmitters are basically these chemical messengers in your body. So I have an image on the right. So they're like these nerve cells to target cells. So you'd have these nerve cells sending messages to cells such as muscle cells and other cells in your body. So different neurotransmitters have different roles and that help our body function. For example, one learning neurotransmitter is the GABA, and it's involved with our memory and helps us learn. So people have found ways to measure levels of GABA in someone to see how efficient they are in learning. And I think you can even take the chemical to enhance your learning. There are also chemicals such as dopamine and ACH, but the main one that our bodies use is glutamate, and it's in charge of memory and it regulates development. So if you think about it, we pretty much need neurotransmitters to learn.
We'll now talk about neuroplasticity. By definition, neuroplasticity refers to how the brain can change and adapt as a result of change, as a result of experience. There are two types of neuroplasticity, functional and structural. Functional plasticity is the brain's ability to move functions from a damaged area of the brain to other undamaged areas. Whereas structural plasticity is the brain's ability to change its physical structure as a result of learning. Neuroplasticity basically works by strengthening certain synapses or connections between neurons, or eliminating these synapses between neurons, based on how your brain adapts to the environment. Some examples of neuroplasticity include that musicians tend to have more gray matter, which is brain tissue full of neurons, in their motor and sensory cortexes compared to non-musicians. Neuroplasticity allows your brain to adapt to its environment and grow stronger neural connections as a result of repetition and practice, making it easier for you to learn. We'll now talk about the hippocampus.
So the hippocampus is a small curved formation in the brain that plays an important role in the limbic system. The hippocampus is involved in the formation of new memories and is also associated with learning and emotions. Have you ever noticed how a particular sense might trigger a strong memory? It's the hippocampus that plays a role in this connection. Because the brain is lateralized and symmetrical, you actually have two hippocampi. They are located just above each ear and about 1.5 inches inside your head. Research has found that different subregions of the hippocampus play important roles in certain types of memory. The rear part of the hippocampus is involved in the processing of spatial memories. Studies of London cab drivers found that navigating complex mazes of big city streets is linked to the growth of the rear region of the hippocampus. The hippocampus also plays a role in consolidating memories during sleep. Studies published in 2004 suggest that greater hippocampal activity during sleep following some sort of training or learning experience leads to better memory of the material the following day. Memories are not stored in the hippocampus for the long term. Instead, it is believed that the hippocampus acts as something of a shipping center, taking in information, registering it, and temporarily storing it before shipping it off to be filed and stored in long-term memory. Sleep is believed to play a critical role in this process. Next, we'll be talking about the amygdala.
We will now talk about the amygdala. You may be wondering, what is the amygdala? Well, the amygdala is a complex structure of cells that is part of the limbic system, which is involved in behavioral and emotional responses. The amygdala generally deals with emotions and emotional behavior. It is nestled in the middle of the brain and is adjacent to the hippocampus. The amygdala is related to learning, more specifically, the learning of emotional components of experiences. It also helps store memories. Some examples of the amygdala's function include conditioned fear and the fight or flight response. Conditioned fear, simply put, is a form of learning in which an experience is linked to bad emotions. The amygdala recognizes this and brings up the same bad emotion of fear when a similar incident is experienced. An example of conditioned fear includes experiencing nightmares after eating lots of chocolate. The amygdala will then link eating lots of chocolate to nightmares. Another example of the amygdala's function is the fight or flight response. When a stressful event occurs, it will automatically trigger a fight or flight response, meaning either fighting through the event or fleeing it. The amygdala overall regulates emotional components in relation to learning and memories experienced. That was all for the amygdala. I hope you learned something new. We will now move on to the prefrontal cortex.
All right, so the prefrontal cortex, or PFC, is basically cerebral cortex, which is another word for neural tissue, that is situated at the front of the frontal lobe, which is why it's called prefrontal. And it basically helps individuals set and achieve goals by contributing to executive functions, such as making you focus, to helping you anticipate future events based on your actions. So for instance, if you procrastinate, then you internally know that it will lead to more stress later on, which is going to help you actually do your work. And on that line, we have impulse control, which means how you manage emotional reactions to your environment, like your reactions to sudden extra work or an upcoming deadline. And 4, we have planning for the future to achieve a higher success rate for your goals. And lastly, 5, coordinating and adjusting complex behaviors, which is basically, I can't do X until Y happens, or I can't do my practice quiz until I finish the reading. And on that note, we'll be looking more deeply into environmental effects on learning.
Now we'll focus on how environmental factors such as music, exercise, and food can influence our ability to learn. So music goes into all aspects of our brain, especially the ones that resonate with memory, emotion, and speech. The hippocampus is the central processing unit of the brain. It produces and receives memory. Music increases neurogenesis in the hippocampus by improving memory, allowing the production of new neurons, and the regeneration of cerebral nerves. Because the hippocampus saves short memory to long memory, it may store certain memories with certain songs. So listening to familiar music, which stems from the same period you're trying to remember, will help with the memory of that event.
Okay, next we'll be talking about exercise. Exercise increases your heart rate, which pumps more oxygen to the brain, and this aids the release of hormones, which provide an excellent environment for brain cells to grow. And so while the brain cells are growing, there's new connections that are formed, and then this helps create brain plasticity in the cortical areas of the brain. And for those of you who don't know what cortical means, it's the outer layer of the cerebrum, which is labeled in the diagram over here. It's the top right. Okay, and then exercise also enlarges the areas of the brain that are associated with memory, task management, coordination, planning, and inhibition. So these areas are listed in the bold. It's the anterior cingulate cortex and the supplementary motor area. And more cell growth in the hippocampus helps with learning because the hippocampus is responsible for learning and memory. And then studies have also shown that exercise can help with depression. And then also the neurotransmitters that are released are dopamine, noradrenaline, and serotonin. And their abbreviations are listed next to them.
Moving on to how food affects someone's learning abilities. The types of food we eat are very important and can affect different aspects of our lives. For example, diets with high levels of fat impair learning and memory. This is due to the effects of glucose and sugars in high-fat foods. Even though glucose is essential for the body, too much glucose in the body lowers the body's energy levels. Normally, the body secretes insulin as glucose is consumed to properly process the foods ingested, and one would feel more energized afterward. However, it's different with people having a high glucose diet, as the glucose intake is too high, so their body begins to shut down as it processes the food. Also, people with diets high in fat may be malnourished since they don't eat enough nutrients, causing more problems with their health, learning, and behavior. Malnutrition can have serious consequences, such as long-term neural issues in the brain, which can result in learning disabilities and other medical complications. This is why it's very important to have a balanced diet, so you can avoid getting health issues and learn effectively. So make sure to eat healthy.
Okay, if you have any questions, you can type it into the chat. You can also type it in privately if you're not comfortable with sharing your question with everyone. And I did notice that some people came in a little bit late. So just to review, because we're going to play a Kahoot after this, we talked about the different types of learning styles, the parts of the brains that are involved with learning, and also environmental effects on learning. So then the different learning styles are visual, auditory, read and write, and then also kinesthetic. And then we talked about neurons, the neurotransmitters involved with learning, and then neuroplasticity, and also the hippocampus and the amygdala, and the prefrontal cortex as well. And then we talked about how music, exercise, food affect a person's ability to learn. So without further ado, I will start the Kahoot. And then you guys can feel free to join this. Yeah, no worries. Okay. So the game pin is 308-438. And then you just go to kahoot.it and then you can join through there. Yeah, thanks for putting that in the chat, Ryan. I think this group comes up with really interesting names. You have Terrified Baby, Smiley Face, Hi, Kyle with 2 Ks, HM, and then Marin, double A's, also Sora. Okay, let's try not to be mean here. Who is this? Okay. In the interest of time, I think we'll get started. But then you can always join while the game is going on because the pin will be at the bottom. Okay. So the first question is, discussions help auditory learners. Is this true or false? Okay, good job. Yeah, so auditory learners like to talk and like listen to sounds and like podcasts and stuff. So discussions are definitely helpful for them. Okay, good job to those on the leaderboard. Next question, which is false about neuroplasticity? It's how the brain changes based on experience. It can eliminate synapses between neurons. It can strengthen synapses between neurons, or the two types are structural and learning. Okay, so I think most people got this one right, but the answers were kind of distributed. The false answer is the two types are structural and learning. And then the rest are actually true. Okay. Third question, how many hippocampi do you have? The options are 1, 2, 0, and 7. Yeah, the correct answer is 2. Like we mentioned, your brain is symmetrical, so there's 1 hippocampi on each side. Okay, Terrified Baby has the highest answer streak of 3. Congrats. Okay, the fourth question. How does the amygdala help with learning? It makes you smarter. It helps with emotional learning or experiences. It helps you visually learn, or it receives memories and learns from them. Okay, so the correct answer is that it helps with emotional learning or experiences. It doesn't necessarily make you smarter or learn visually. And it doesn't receive memories and learn from them. Okay, the next one is a true or false. Music decreases neurogenesis. Oops. Okay, this is false. Music has more benefits than it does like bad consequences. Okay, our next question, there are multiple correct answers. What are some characteristics of visual learners? They pay strong attention to detail, they take excellent notes, they're disorganized, or they're able to visualize words in their mind. So you can choose more than one answer. There's more than one that's correct. Okay, yeah, so all of the options are correct except for disorganized. Then our next question is a true or false question. Kinesthetic learners excel in lab settings where they can manipulate materials to learn. Is this true or false? Okay. Marin has a really strong lead. Okay, the next question we have true or false, diets with high levels of fat improve learning. So this is false and everybody chose this is good. You should always try to eat healthy because that helps your learning. Eating unhealthy foods that have a lot of fat aren't really good for you and they don't improve your learning. Okay, which is not a main component of the neuron. So the correct answer is the epithelium. The other three are the main components of a neuron. Okay, the prefrontal cortex helps you anticipate future events based on your actions. Is this true or false? Okay, yeah, this is true. The prefrontal cortex uses your actions to help you anticipate future events. Okay, this one is also a multi-select. Music helps with which of the following? Regeneration of cerebral nerves, improving memory, allowing production of new neurons, or increasing neurogenesis. Okay, so all of these are correct because music helps with all of them. Okay. The last question, which food is linked to better brain power? Soda, fries, Cheetos, or green veggies? Okay, great. Everybody chose the correct answer. Even though soda, fries, Cheetos may be something that we really want to eat, green veggies are very healthy, therefore they help with our learning. And then next we'll look at the podium. In third place with 11 out of 12, we have Marin. In second place with 9 out of 12, we have Kyle. And then in first place with 9 out of 12, we have Sora. So good job. And then our runner-ups are and Terrified Baby, I think. Okay, thank you everyone for playing. We have 3-ish minutes remaining. So this is our social media information if you ever want to reach out to us or learn more about our resources. And then our next session will be on October 24th, and we'll be talking about rheumatology. And then the following week is Halloween, so we won't be having a session. So we'll resume on November 7th, and then we'll have one more session on November 14th, and then we'll break for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Okay, so I should have done Screaming Baby. Maybe you can do it next time. Yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, there's 1 more minute left in the meeting. So you guys are free to go early and have a good Sunday. Thank you.